Living in the tropics can be a dream come true. From lush landscapes to fresh air to warm weather year-round, tropical climates have a lot going for them. But what the glossy photos don't show you are the climate challenges that it faces. From humidity to storms, there's a lot to contend with. The way you design your house can mean the difference between constant struggle and actual comfort. I spent nearly 9 years living in a tropical climate, and I even built my own home there. And so I know firsthand that tropical climates aren't always perfect. From intense wind and rain to UV concerns to relentless humidity, these elements can turn your dream home into a maintenance headache if you're not careful with how you design your home. So in this video, I'm going to break down the biggest challenges to tropical home design and what you need to know to make paradise livable for the long haul. First off, if you're new here, hello, my name is Christina, and on this channel, we're all about innovation and resilience and designing homes that truly support future generations. So if that's the kind of future you want to be a part of, please hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to join this growing community. If we haven't met yet, you should know that I am obsessed with climate-specific design. Having designed homes in a variety of different climates, I've learned that every climate comes with its unique challenges and opportunities. I'm especially excited to talk about tropical home design today because over the years, I've designed custom homes in Hawaii, specifically with bamboo, and I'm about to share some key lessons that I've learned along the way. So let's dive in. One of the biggest advantages of living in tropical climates is that you can basically live outdoors most of the time. That gives us the opportunity to blur the lines between indoor and outdoor spaces in really beautiful ways. Courtyards are a really classical feature of tropical home designs, but even L-shaped homes can create both natural ventilation and a strong connection to garden spaces. Opening up kitchens and living rooms to the outdoors is really ideal. So think about it, the most practical and meaningful connection we have to the outdoors is through our gardens and the food that we cook from the gardens. So in the tropics, the kitchen can become an outdoor kitchen in many cases, where that produce comes straight in from the garden, dirt and all, and is washed and prepped without the fuss of keeping things spotless before stepping inside the house. So as a utilitarian space, the kitchen has this direct relationship to the land. It just makes so much sense to have the kitchen connected to the outdoor space with a covered porch. It's opened, yet it's still sheltered. And the same is also true for bathrooms. They're already wet and humid, which makes them perfect for the outdoors. With pocket gardens, gray water can be drained directly to plants, creating a simple closed loop system. And at the very least, an outdoor shower can make a lot of sense in tropical climates. It's practical, it's refreshing, and it really gives you this one-of-a-kind, unique shower experience. And the same goes for living areas. They don't always need to be enclosed. As long as your upholstery is protected and you're not storing tech equipment like TVs, a living room can be just as comfortable, if not more inspiring, on a covered porch where, your entertainment becomes the natural world around you. In the tropics, open and outdoor spaces are amazing, but it's just as important to design them so that they can close up when you need. So think movable screens, sliding glass doors. From my own experience, I've lived in completely open air homes and partially open ones. And when a storm rolls through, those spaces can feel really vulnerable. You end up moving furniture to keep it away from wind-driven rain or scrambling to actually protect the building itself. That's why having the option to close things off with glass doors or other types of sliders is just such a game changer. It keeps your home protected while still feeling connected to the outdoors when the weather is calm and beautiful. Real quick, I would love to hear from you. So let me know in the comments below how you plan to design your home so that it's connected to nature, but still protected from the elements. Okay, next up, we have to talk about durability because materials are key here. In tropical home design, material choice is everything. Anything exposed to humidity, salt air, UV, and wind-driven rains needs to be able to withstand some serious wear and tear. So that's why you see a lot of concrete in tropical architecture. In fact, I believe that in many ways, the prevalence of concrete is what got the brutalist movement to have such a precedence in tropical regions. But concrete isn't the only option out there. There are lots of natural alternatives to concrete. So there are things like rammed earth, compressed earth blocks, there's AAC blocks as well, and they have the potential to hold up just as well with the proper methods of protecting the materials. When they're finished with these protective coatings like lime plasters or even Cadillac, which is a Moroccan plaster technique, you can create durable, waterproof finishes that resist the rain and the humidity and connect us to natural elements in our homes. One example of using natural materials in tropical climates is a project I worked on in Kauai. It was a meditation center, and instead of drywall, we used magnesium board on the inside and the outside instead of drywall and wood cladding. So magnesium board was great because it's so mold resistant and it performs especially well in salty coastal conditions, because a good portion of seawater is made from magnesium. So this was really important because this building was just a couple hundred feet from the ocean. However, we have to be careful in these climates because thermal mass materials like magnesium board, but more specifically concrete, compressed earth blocks, any mass wall can really be a double-edged sword in these climates. They act as thermal batteries, they're storing the heat during the day, and then they're releasing it at night. Concrete homes in particular are notorious for overheating, especially when they're paired with poor design, which happens way too often. For example, flat roof lines or buildings with minimal overhangs are a really common look in modern tropical architecture, but they leave the building baking in the sun all day, especially if they aren't insulated to the exterior, which is pretty common. Basically, by nightfall, all this concrete or mass material starts to slowly release the heat into the building, basically making the bedrooms furnaces at night when you're really just trying to go to sleep and cool off. So when using mass materials, we really have to have proper overhangs. They protect the walls from the direct sun and keep them shaded throughout the day. Hip roofs in particular are excellent in tropical climates because they provide consistent shading on all sides of the building. Overhangs also play a huge role in protecting the walls from wind-driven rain. Tropical downpours are often paired with strong winds, which can basically push the wind higher onto the windows, walls, and the doors. A well-designed overhang helps keep those vulnerable areas dry and protected. And sometimes these are really large overhangs, sometimes up to 4 to 6 feet in many cases. And this is especially important for two-story buildings. It's really important to think about those lower levels since those walls are just more exposed. So one elegant solution is to cantilever the second floor over the first floor to basically provide that natural shading and wind and rain protection without the need to attach an additional overhang just for the first floor. And don't forget that these overhangs not only help with the rain and the wind, but they also help with UV damage, which is really critical for durability of materials in these climates. In some cases, large overhangs aren't really an option if you're dealing with a really small lot. So you can also consider louvered shades as a simple solution, and you'll just have to use them more frequently as you go down the wall or the window. Protecting the prevailing wind side of a building is really important in these climates as well. For example, when I built my home in Maui, I placed it on the leeward side of a cliff. So this naturally sheltered the walls from big storms that would roll in. Another great part of this strategy was that the cliff acted as a thermal mass, and because it was shaded most of the day, it really did stay cool and kept the surrounding area of the house cool as well. Windows are another key detail in tropical design. I personally love awning windows. Awning windows are the ones that open from the bottom. And these are just really great because during a rainstorm, it acts as a overhang from the actual opening and it doesn't allow rain to come into the house, and you can still leave them open. And that just provides more ventilation during a storm without the headache of having to close them really quickly as the storm rolls in. Another thing I see in tropical architecture, in particular modern apartment architecture are a lot of floor to ceiling windows or big glass sliders. And these are great, but honestly, you have to make sure that you have proper overhangs again, because if the sun hits those windows, they're going to instantly heat up the space when the greenhouse effect kicks in. Like most climates, having screens with your windows is pretty typical, but in the tropics, they are essential because bugs are the #1 enemy in the tropics. Screens also help with debris and dust that can roll in from windstorms, and also making sure that your building is airtight is also going to help with any potential pest problems. In tropical regions where big storms are prevalent, like hurricanes, it's really important to design for this. Large open porches might seem appealing in these climates, but they can actually be kind of dangerous because when big storms roll through, the wind can actually uplift the roof and sometimes sweep up from underneath and even tear roofs right off. Keep your porches modest in size to reduce that risk if you are in these types of regions. But because overhangs are so important, like I just mentioned, especially for shading the mass of the building, it's really important to make sure that they're properly strapped and secured. So you don't want to over-engineer, but you do want to have some redundancies because it's just a smart strategy for resilience, especially in today's world when storms are increasingly more intense and we're not able to predict what might be next. Another important factor to consider in tropical regions is the seismic conditions that you're in. So if you're near mountains or a volcanic activity, seismic activity could be a real threat for you. So you need to design something with strength and flexibility. Flexibility is key here for those earthquake regions and just in areas where the soil might shift as well. So tensile options like post and pier construction is a really good option. In these areas, using lightweight materials like bamboo or wood are really well suited for these seismic regions. Meanwhile, mass materials like concrete or earth blocks really are better suited for areas where there's bigger storms and where durability against those storms is a bigger concern. It's important to keep in mind with the tensile materials, like I mentioned, the wood and the bamboo, that you're properly sealing them because they're really vulnerable, especially to UV damage and termites. So you want to be sure that you use a termite protection and a UV finish as well if they are going to be exposed to the direct sunlight. You'll want to consider low toxic options like borates or even shoshugibon, which chars the outer layer of the wood for protection. If you're planning on designing and building a home in the tropics, I would love to hear about your vision. Maybe you have a breezy open air concept design or a lush food forest out back, or a completely off-grid retreat. So whatever your vision, I would love to hear where you're at in your process. So feel free to book a complimentary call with me and I'll drop that description down in the box below. Managing humidity is one of the biggest factors in tropical home design. Many passive cooling strategies that work in drier zones simply do not apply here. For example, techniques like ventilation cooling don't function as well because the dense moisture-filled air prevents heat from escaping. But not every space in your home needs strict humidity control. Rooms like kitchens and bathrooms, like I mentioned earlier, can handle a bit of humidity, where other spaces like bedrooms and closets or offices with tech equipment in them aren't as hardy to the humidity, and this is especially important in coastal regions that you want to keep these particular spaces out of the humidity. So a really smart approach is to just create different zones for these spaces. So climate controlled and then non-climate controlled. And what this does is it allows you to protect sensitive belongings while not oversizing your HVAC equipment. So for most homes in the tropics, this means just putting AC in those rooms, the bedrooms and the closets. That's just a great place to start. And just stick with AC because AC dries and cools the air at the same time, and it's just more efficient than relying just on a dehumidifier, which uses more energy without the benefit of actually cooling. That said, both air conditioners and dehumidifiers work by moving the heat outside, and this is a problem especially in urban areas where the urban heat sink is a problem. So if you are going with AC, you want to look for systems that use advanced refrigerants like R32 or 454B, rather than conventional refrigerants that contribute to global warming and particularly ozone depletion. For those indoor and outdoor spaces, humidity will still be a problem, but you can still design for comfort by simply keeping the air moving. You can do all sorts of things like having breezeways, having high and low windows to help move the air through the stack effect. There are a host of other ways to passively move air and work with those pressure differentials to keep it moving. And really, don't underestimate the beauty of ceiling fans. They're actually really efficient and they're a low energy way to keep that air circulating and make the space feel cooler, even if it's still humid. Roof design is something else we need to touch on as well, because this is something that is often really overlooked. Because the sun sits so high in the sky in the tropics throughout the year, the roof gets the brunt force of a lot of the heat from the sun. So there's several ways that you can reduce heat from entering your home from the roof. First and foremost, roof insulation is an absolute must. While you don't need it in your walls necessarily in tropical climates, having it in your roof is really essential because it's keeping the heat from entering the home to begin with. So don't skip roof insulation. It'll make a big difference, I promise you. Radiant barriers or reflective membranes like CoolRay, for example, work really well in tropical climates. If you're on a budget, you can even just use a simple white paint, or there's some kind of cooling paints as well, radiative cooling paints that you can use, and they do make a noticeable difference. And if you're looking for more advanced solutions, there's things like phase change materials and things like night sky radiation, although this is limited in humid areas, but those are just a few other emerging strategies and innovations that are out there. Again, because high humidity is such a problem that night sky radiation isn't really that effective and should be used as part of a broader solution for cooling. And remember, you can use different systems for your cooling. It doesn't have to just be your AC, just your ventilation, or just your radiative barrier. Having a resilient strategy means combining and diversifying different techniques in your project. There are a ton more passive cooling strategies, so if you'd like to learn more about that, I have a whole video on it you can watch here, so please do check that out. And that's a wrap on tropical home design. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many considerations when designing a home, so I'm really just scratching the surface here. So let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you think I could add to this video or you'd like to hear more about. I'd love to hear from you. If you're thinking about designing and building your own home in the tropics, I would love to chat. So head down to the description box below. I'll put a link to a complimentary call where we can chat more about your vision and see if there's a way that I can further support you. Okay, so that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.